My son-in-law looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Don't embarrass us at the baby shower. Just leave quietly." I wanted to disappear, but then the doctor walked in, holding a folder with test results in my name. The whole room froze. If you're enjoying this story so far, make sure to subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. My name is Thomas Hale. I am 68 years old, a retired history teacher, and a widower. For most of my life, my world has been my daughter, Emily. She is 32 now, married to Derek Reed, and expecting her first child. When I found out she was going to be a mother, my heart felt alive again. Becoming a grandfather was something I had prayed for since losing my wife years ago. In the weeks leading up to the baby shower, I spent my mornings knitting a soft blue blanket. My wife had taught me how when Emily was a little girl, and I wanted her child to feel the same love. Every stitch was filled with memories and hope. The shower was held at a country club chosen by Derek's family. It was elegant, expensive, and filled with people in suits and dresses who barely knew Emily. I wore my best jacket, polished my old shoes, and walked in holding the gift bag with the blanket. The room was beautiful, but I could feel the eyes on me. Derek's mother, Caroline, gave me a quick look from head to toe, as if I didn't belong. I tried to focus on Emily. She looked radiant, glowing with that light only mothers-to-be carry. I hugged her and whispered, "Your mother would have loved to be here today." She dreamed of this moment. Emily smiled, but glanced nervously at Derek before answering, "I know, Dad. Let's just try to make today go smoothly." Her words stung. It felt like she was caught between love for me and loyalty to him. As guests laughed and sipped champagne, I stood quietly at the side, clutching the baby blanket. I wanted to be part of the celebration, to show my daughter that I would always be there for her. But deep down, I already felt like an outsider in her new world. I had been standing quietly near the refreshment table, watching people move from one cluster of conversations to another, when Derek suddenly appeared at my side. His smile was wide, polished, and fake, the kind of smile he saved for clients and important guests. He leaned closer to me, his voice sharp and low so no one else could hear. "Listen, old man," he said through clenched teeth. "Don't embarrass us today. People here don't need to see you fumbling around. When it's time, just leave quietly." For a moment, my heart stopped. I thought I had misheard him. This was my daughter's baby shower, my first grandchild. How could he speak to me like that? But the coldness in his eyes told me he meant every word. I wanted to defend myself, to shout back, but the words caught in my throat. I felt small, unwelcome, like I was nothing more than a burden in a room full of strangers. I looked around, hoping Emily had not heard him. She was across the room, laughing softly with a friend from college, her hands resting on her round belly. She looked happy, and I did not want to ruin that. So, I said nothing. Derek straightened up and walked away, his smile returning as if nothing had happened. I stayed frozen in place, gripping the baby blanket tighter than ever. A few minutes later, Caroline, his mother, drifted past me with her glass of wine. She had clearly overheard the exchange, or at least seen enough of it to guess. She smirked and said in a voice sweet enough for others to hear, "Some people just don't know when they're out of their depth." Then she turned her back to me and joined a group of women, making them laugh as if I had been the punchline. My face burned. I wanted to sink into the floor. I had never felt so humiliated, but at the same time, I told myself that if leaving quietly would keep Emily from stress, maybe it was better that way. I could leave the blanket behind and slip out the door before anyone noticed. She would still get my gift, and maybe she would remember that her father had been there, even if only for a short time. I tried to steady myself, but my mind wouldn't stop racing. Every memory of raising Emily came back to me in sharp flashes, walking her to school with her tiny hand in mine, sitting through piano recitals, standing at the back of her high school auditorium, cheering louder than anyone else. I had sacrificed so much to give her a good life, and now, here I was, being told I wasn't good enough to stand by her side. I glanced down at the gift bag. Inside was the blanket I had worked on for weeks. The stitches weren't perfect, but they were mine. Each loop of yarn carried the memory of her mother, who had taught me to knit when Emily was still in diapers. That blanket was more than fabric. It was love made real. The thought of leaving it behind without saying anything made my chest ache. I took a step toward the exit. My hand hovered near the door handle. I could just walk out, no questions asked. Derek would be pleased, Caroline would be smug, and Emily would probably never even know the real reason why I had left. Maybe that was easier for everyone. But as I stood there, something inside me refused to move. I thought about my wife, about how fiercely she had loved Emily, and about how she had always reminded me that being a parent doesn't end when your child grows up. She would never forgive me if I walked away without fighting for my place in our daughter's life. Still, the humiliation weighed heavily. My chest felt tight. I didn't know what was right. Just then, I heard Derek's voice booming from across the room as he introduced a guest with exaggerated charm. People laughed and applauded. His world was full of confidence and control, and I was being shoved to the edges of it. I clenched my fists. The old me, the teacher who once stood in front of classrooms, guiding and inspiring students, was still inside me. But Derek had made me feel like a shadow. I turned back to look at Emily again. She caught my eyes across the room, and for a brief second, her smile faded. She gave me a puzzled look, as if she sensed something was wrong. I forced a small smile and lifted the gift bag slightly to show her I was still here. She smiled faintly in return, but then Derek touched her shoulder and pulled her into another group of guests, leaving me invisible again. The laughter around me grew louder, but it all sounded distant, muffled, like I was underwater. My mind kept repeating Derek's words, "Don't embarrass us. Leave quietly." They echoed like a cruel drumbeat, pushing me closer to the door. At that moment, I made a decision. I would not cause a scene. I would not ruin Emily's day, no matter how much Derek wanted to erase me. I placed the bag with the blanket carefully on the table, with the other gifts. My hands lingered on it for a second, as if I could pass my love through the wrapping paper. Then I straightened my jacket and walked toward the exit. My heart was breaking, but I convinced myself it was the best choice for Emily. I was inches from the door when the sound of it opening made me stop in my tracks. A man in a white coat stepped inside, holding a folder in his hand. His eyes scanned the room, and then landed on me. The guests went silent. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even Derek stopped talking. The man cleared his throat and said firmly, "I'm so sorry to intrude, but I have urgent test results. They're under the name Thomas Hale." And just like that, the entire room froze. The sound of the doctor's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "I have urgent test results under the name Thomas Hale." Every head in the room turned toward me. My heart pounded in my chest, and for a moment, I wondered if I was dreaming. Why would a doctor come looking for me here, of all places? And why in front of everyone? Derek's smile vanished instantly. He stiffened, his jaw tight, as though the doctor's presence threatened to unravel the perfect picture he had painted of this day. Caroline shifted uncomfortably, raising her eyebrows as though this was some kind of mistake, or worse, a deliberate attempt to disrupt her son's carefully planned event. The room, once buzzing with chatter, had become so quiet that I could hear the clinking of ice in someone's glass. Confusion filled my mind. Test results? For me? I hadn't been to the doctor in months, other than a routine checkup. I felt the weight of dozens of eyes pressing on me, waiting for an explanation. My legs felt heavy, but I managed to take a step forward. "Test results?" I asked, my voice trembling. I don't understand." The doctor, a tall man with kind but serious eyes, looked straight at me. "Mr. Hale, I'm sorry to bring this up in such a setting, but I was told to reach you urgently. These results could not wait." I could feel Derek's glare burning into the side of my face. He hissed under his breath, "What is this nonsense? You're making a scene." He wanted me to vanish, but it was too late. The attention was no longer on him. It was on me, the man he had tried to push out of the picture. Emily stepped forward, her eyes wide and worried. "Dad, what's going on? Are you sick?" The tone in her voice carried more love and fear than I had heard from her in years. and it broke me. I wanted to reassure her, but the truth was, I had no idea why the doctor was here. The doctor lifted the folder slightly. I can explain, but it's important that your daughter hears this too. Murmurs filled the room. Guests leaned closer, whispering among themselves. Some looked uncomfortable, others intrigued, as though the drama unfolding was more entertaining than the party itself. I looked at Emily, her hands clutching her belly protectively. She was the only reason I had come today, the only reason I endured Derek's humiliation, and now, this unexpected moment had pulled her closer to me, even if, just for a second. I drew in a shaky breath and made a choice. I would not run. I would not let Derek shove me out the door like some forgotten relic. Whatever this was, I would face it. I stepped fully into the center of the room, straightening my shoulders. My voice came out steadier this time. Go ahead, doctor. I want to hear it, and I think my daughter deserves to know too. The doctor nodded, his tone calm but firm. Mr. Hale, during your last routine checkup, we ran additional tests based on your family history. The results show a genetic marker that can impact children if it's passed down. Your daughter's medical team requested we notify you immediately because it could affect her pregnancy. These results might help protect your grandchild's health. Gasps rippled across the room. Emily's hand flew to her mouth. Derek's face turned pale, as if someone had pulled the rug out from under him. Caroline muttered something about timing under her breath, but no one was listening to her anymore. I froze, trying to process what I had just heard. My test results, my blood, my DNA, could help protect Emily's unborn baby. For weeks, I had felt like nothing more than an unwanted guest in her new life, but in that moment, I realized I carried something no amount of Derek's or power could replace. Emily rushed toward me, gripping my arm. Dad, is this true? You could help the baby? Her eyes were filled with both fear and hope, searching my face for reassurance. I swallowed hard, nodding slowly. It seems so, sweetheart. I didn't know. But if this can help your child, then yes, it's true. Her tears came quickly, and she hugged me tightly, her belly pressing against me. Dad, thank you, thank you. Her voice cracked, and I could feel her trembling. Derek stood frozen, his hands clenched into fists. His carefully crafted image of control had slipped, and everyone in the room saw it. He opened his mouth as if to speak, but no words came out. He was powerless, watching as the man he had tried to humiliate became the center of everything. For the first time in years, I felt my place in my daughter's life was unshakable, not because of pride, not because of proving Derek wrong, but because in the most unexpected way, I had been given a chance to protect her again. The humiliation I had felt moments earlier was gone, replaced by something stronger. I looked down at Emily, still holding me, as if she were that little girl clutching my hand on her first day of school. My voice was soft, but certain. Sweetheart, I'll do whatever it takes. I'm here for you, and for that baby. Always. The guests began whispering again, this time not about Derek's perfect event, but about the father who had just been pulled into the center of his daughter's story in the most powerful way. I could see the shift happening before my eyes. People who had ignored me now looked at me with respect, even admiration. In that moment, I knew something had changed forever. I had been ready to walk away quietly, but fate had forced me to stay, and staying was the decision that would alter everything, not only for me, but for my daughter, her child, and the future of our family. The room seemed to shrink around me. All the laughter, the decorations, the clinking glasses, none of it mattered anymore. Every person in that country club was staring at me, the man Derek had tried to shove out of sight. My name, my blood, my test results had become the center of the entire celebration. I had walked in feeling like an outsider, and now, in one moment, everything had shifted. The doctor's words hung in the air. These results could help protect your grandchild's health. My heart swelled with a mix of fear, relief, and pride. I wasn't useless. I wasn't irrelevant. I mattered in the most important way possible. Emily's arms were still wrapped tightly around me. Her tears dampened my shoulder as she whispered, "Dad, I don't care what anyone says. You're the reason my baby has a chance." Her voice cracked, and the raw emotion in her words shattered the last wall that had been standing between us. I felt my knees weaken, not from age, but from the overwhelming rush of love and validation. For so long, I had worried that Derek's world, his money, his connections, his arrogance, had taken my daughter away from me. Yet in front of all his guests, with all his wealth and power, it was me, her father, who held the key to protecting her child. Derek tried to regain control. His voice was sharp and defensive, louder than it needed to be. "This doesn't change anything," he snapped, looking around at the guests as if trying to remind them who was in charge. "We already have the best doctors. We don't need—" But the doctor cut him off firmly. "With respect, Mr. Reed, you do need this. Without Mr. Hale's genetic information, your child's health risks could increase significantly. This is not about status or wealth. It's about science, family, and timing." The words hit Derek harder than any punch could. His face flushed red, his mouth opening and closing like a man who suddenly had nothing left to say. He looked like a statue, frozen and powerless, while everyone else turned their attention back to me. Caroline shifted uncomfortably, muttering under her breath, but this time no one laughed at her remarks. No one followed her lead. The entire room knew the truth. The man they had judged as unimportant had just become the lifeline for the future of their family. Emily pulled back slightly, her eyes meeting mine. Her cheeks were wet with tears, but her gaze was steady. "Dad, I should have stood up for you sooner. I let him push you aside, and I hate myself for that. But please know, I love you. I need you. This baby needs you." Her words tore through the pain I had been carrying for years. I cupped her face gently, my voice breaking. "Sweetheart, I never needed you to choose between us. I just wanted to be here, to see you happy, to hold my grandchild one day. That's all I ever wanted." The room was silent, except for the sound of Emily crying softly against me. And then something unexpected happened. A few of the guests began to clap. At first, it was hesitant, a single pair of hands breaking the silence. But then it grew louder. Applause spread through the crowd, echoing against the high ceilings of the hall. People were no longer celebrating Derek's carefully staged party. They were celebrating the bond between a father and his daughter. Derek's jaw tightened. His pride was wounded, and for the first time, he looked smaller than me. He stepped forward, trying one last time to take control. "Emily, don't let emotions cloud your judgment. We need to think practically." But Emily stood her ground. She wiped her tears and faced him directly. "No, Derek. This isn't about being practical or about appearances. This is about my father, the man who raised me, who never gave up on me, who literally carries the answer in his blood. If you can't respect him, then maybe you don't deserve to stand next to me." The silence that followed was deafening. Derek's face drained of color. He glanced at the guests, hoping for support, but all he found were eyes turned cold, judgmental, even disgusted. His arrogance had crumbled in public, and there was no recovering from it. I stood taller, not because I wanted to humiliate him, but because I finally understood my worth. All the years of sacrifice, of working long hours, of sitting by Emily's bedside when she was sick, of cheering at her school plays, it had all led to this moment. I had been the one constant in her life, the one who truly loved her without condition, and no one could take that from me. The doctor placed a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "Mr. Hale, we'll need to schedule follow-up testing, but thanks to you, we can make a plan to keep the baby safe." I nodded, my throat too tight to speak. The crowd was still watching, but I no longer cared about their stares. My focus was on Emily and the new life she carried. Emily squeezed my hand, her voice steady now. "Dad, you're not going anywhere. You're part of this baby's life from the very start. That's a promise." The tension in my chest finally released. Tears filled my eyes, but they were not tears of shame this time. They were tears of joy, of redemption, of knowing that I had not been erased from my daughter's story after all. The applause faded into murmurs again, but the moment was already etched into my heart. For years, I had been afraid of being forgotten, of being replaced. But in that instant, I realized something unshakable. No matter how much Derek tried to push me aside, I would always be his father. And now, I would always be her child's grandfather. It was the most powerful, unexpected gift life could give me, and I held it tightly, knowing nothing could take it away. The applause slowly died down, but the weight of the moment lingered. I stood there holding Emily's hand, my heart still racing from everything that had just unfolded. I had walked into that baby shower feeling like an outsider, humiliated by Derek's harsh words and Caroline's dismissive glances. Now, in front of everyone, the truth had been laid bare. I mattered, not because of wealth or status, but because of love, sacrifice, and a connection that no one could break. Emily didn't let go of my hand for the rest of the evening. Every time Derek tried to edge his way back into the spotlight, she turned toward me instead. Her loyalty had shifted, not away from her husband completely, but firmly back to her father, where it belonged. The blanket I had knitted, the one I almost left behind, was no longer just a gift. It became a symbol, resting on the gift table, but glowing in my heart with new. The guests, who had earlier barely acknowledged, now approached me one by one. Some offered polite nods, others whispered kind words, and a few even apologized for how they had treated me when they first walked in. For the first in years, I felt seen, not as a burden, not as someone, but as a man who had something irreplaceable to give. Caroline stayed near the back, her glass of shaking slightly, her youth laced by quiet shame. I didn't need her approval. For years, I had thought acceptance from Derek's family was the key to staying, but that night I realized I didn't need their my bond with my daughter was enough. Derek, on the other hand, kept his distance. His pride was wounded. His carefully polished image shattered his friends and colleagues. He muttered something about medical privacy and bad timing, but no one listened. The truth was plain for everyone to see. The man he had tried to belittle had become the hero of the night. Later, when most of the guests had left, Emily sat down beside me in the quiet corner of the hall. She looked exhausted, but her smile was the warmest I had seen in years. "Dad," she said softly, "I don't know how I let it get this far. I let Derek convince me you didn't belong, but today showed me how wrong that was. You've always been here for me, and now you're here for my child. I'll never let anyone push you away again." Her words filled me with a peace I hadn't felt since my wife passed. I placed my hand gently over hers and replied, "Sweetheart, I never needed to be the loudest voice in the room. I just needed to be here when you needed me most. That's what being a father is." She leaned her head against my shoulder, and for a moment, it felt like the years had melted away. She wasn't a grown woman expecting her first child. She was still my little girl, the one who used to run into my arms after school, the one who clung to me when she was afraid of thunderstorms. That bond had never disappeared. It had only been buried under layers of doubt and influence. Now, it was alive again. In the days that followed, the story of that night spread quickly through Derek's circle. People no longer remembered the baby shower for its decorations or catering. They remembered the moment a father's love stole the spotlight and proved stronger than pride or money. Derek avoided speaking about it, embarrassed by how the evening had slipped from his control. But Emily no longer cared about appearances. She called me every day, updating me on her health, asking me to join her for doctor's appointments, and making sure I knew how much she valued me. I often think back to that moment when I stood by the door, ready to leave quietly. If I had walked away, I would have missed everything. The chance to be there for Emily, the chance to save her baby, the chance to remind her that no matter what life brought, her father would always stand by her. Sometimes the greatest moments of redemption happen when we are seconds away from giving up. Now, as I sit with the blanket folded neatly on my lap, I don't see the uneven stitches or the mistakes I worried about. I see love, resilience, and a reminder that family cannot be measured by status or wealth. It is measured by loyalty, by sacrifice, and by the courage to stand firm even when others try to push you aside. I know there will still be challenges ahead. Derek's pride will not heal overnight, and Caroline's judgment may never change, but none of that matters anymore. Emily has chosen to see me for who I am, and that is enough. I will be there for her child from the very first day, and nothing can take that away from me. If there's one lesson I carry from that night, it's this: Never let anyone convince you that you don't matter. Sometimes the very thing people dismiss you for is the thing that makes you the most important. Love, in its purest form, will always find a way to shine through. If this story touched your heart, make sure to subscribe to the channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'd love to hear your story too.